4 directions and 4 aspects of humanity: spirit, mind, emotions, and the body. So, other day we talked about breath as a way of aligning and balancing the mind with the spirit and that which gives or brings life. So your mind is partly how you begin to understand how things work. Your feelings and emotions are also an indicator. So part of building health literacy, first you have to be print literate. You have to be able to read and write and think. It's not always necessary, but you understand that brushing your teeth and flossing is a good idea, but you might not understand the science behind it. I mean, you can brush your teeth without knowing how to read, right? But if you have print literacy, health literacy, that can be enhanced by a scientific literacy. And all of those can be enhanced by an emotional literacy. How do I read my feelings? Is this depression really depression, or is it something else? Hiding, masquerading, anger in depression drag, as it were. All right? So, Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared. Energy and matter are the same thing, moving at different speeds. Energy is matter moving faster. So your spirit, think of it like in computer terms. Your computer is plugged into a wall, electricity runs it, software tells it what to do. So spirit in you is basically plugged into your body, giving you life. Life begins with an inhale and ends with an exhale. While you're breathing, you're alive. Okay, so breath is literally like your life. So where your spirit goes, animating your body after you stop breathing, is not subject to the class, but your spirit is energy animating matter. When your spirit is gone, your body dies. We're not going to deal with metaphysics here. Dealing with addiction. So your mind is energy animating your physical brain. So the mind is like software, the brain is like hardware. To use a computer analogy. So your mind is separate from your brain. Okay? Your emotions are partially energy and partially based on the physical chemicals produced by your body, neurotransmitters, neurohormones, neuropeptides, etc. Amino acids, all kinds of different things, neurochemicals. All right? Now, these terms, neuro means nerve. So these were originally when the theory was that we used to think these things were only in the nervous system. Only how nerve cells communicated with each other. Well, we've since found out it's way more complicated than that. So for example, your white blood cells, certain white blood cells within your immune system also produce these chemicals, as well as other cells outside the nervous system. And the relationship is so intertwined that if you're depressed, your white blood cells work less efficiently and you get sick. If you keep your attitude positive, your immune system also functions at an optimal state. This is called psychoneuroimmunology. That is, the mind affects how the immune system works, and vice versa. I read a piece actually that showed, or basically starting to conceptualize Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. Okay? In type 1 diabetes, you don't make enough insulin, your body can't use the insulin, so insulin allows your cells to take in sugar. You can be born with it. In type 2 diabetes, you actually develop a resistance to your insulin. And in type 3, when they're considering what type 3 is and relating to Alzheimer's, your brain cells actually develop a resistance to insulin and start dying, therefore losing capacity. A new conceptual framework for Alzheimer's. Anyway, so your physical body is both the hardware built by DNA and the software that goes along with DNA. So in other words, not only the hardware building your physical body, but also the system memory of every organism that came before you in your genetic line. All right? Going back to the first bacteria, and including plants. Really, the difference between us and plants, chlorophyll and hemoglobin, what we use for oxygen transport, they're the exact same molecule, except chlorophyll has magnesium and hemoglobin has iron, which switch out, are interchangeable. That's why spinach helps your iron content in your blood. It's biotransformed in your body. Easy switch. Right? That's why you have to have leafy greens. Maintain your health. So your physical body is both hardware built by DNA and software that goes along with it. So most of the time, this culture doesn't really teach you to be aware of the relationship between your physical body and the energies that animate it or run through it. So most people, for example, simply think that they are their impulses, emotions, and drives and urges, instead of the fact that they have emotions, impulses, and drives, and at a certain point they can choose to control them if they have the skills to do so. So another analogy, those of you, you can all relate to this. If you're potty trained, you can hold it. Okay? Unless there's some medical condition that doesn't allow you to hold it. Right? I hate to be so crass, but what about when you're bored, hungry, horny, lonely, angry? Who teaches you to hold those things and not act on them? Or dispose of them properly? Remember, you're potty trained, you have to dispose of your body's waste properly. Right? But if you have an impulse, I'm bored. Well, what do you do when you're bored? When I feel I'm bored, I got to do this. Why don't you sit with the boredom? What? Why would I do that? Yeah, why don't you sit with your boredom? What does boredom feel like? Where do you feel it? In order to do that, you have to slow your breath down enough so that you can, this is what I feel bored. This is what bored feels like. I start getting this itching in the back of my neck. I start wanting to move. What if I just breathe? Notice that, I should just relax that tension in my back, and now I'm not bored anymore. Right? That's holding it. Not having to immediately do something about it. Same thing with those other things, your other impulses. Bored, hungry, horny, lonely, angry, whatever it is for you. Okay? How do you hold it? How do you hold those emotions, those spaces? So, you know how to hold the impulse and resolve it in another way other than addictive behavior. Because that's what we've been trained to do as Americans. I remember sitting in the hot tub in the hot springs outside of LA. There's a local Air Force base. I'm sitting in this hot tub, and there's this Korean woman across the tub from me, right? And just bubble, 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 bubble. I'm wearing one of my necklaces or something. And she goes, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from LA." "You don't have an American face." Bubble, bubble, bubble. So I'm thinking, okay, so usually when a white person says that to me, it's like, Where are you from? Like I'm not from America? Wait, I was born in the Haight-Ashbury and raised in South Central LA. I'm an American, yo. But this is different. And Korean woman has asked me, well, I'm from LA. Of course I'm American. And so I'm just bubble in the hot. Okay, so what do you mean I don't have an American face? She says, your face is relaxed. Snap. Okay, right. Americans are impatient. I mean, we're known for that, right? We have the patience of ice on the sidewalk. On a hot summer day. Got to be entertained. Can't be bored. Always got to, right? So I don't know how she could see that in my face in the hot tub. Like my face is relaxed and it's supposed to be relaxed in a hot tub, but okay. Whatever. But the idea is we are given all sorts of things in our culture to distract us from our emotions. So, an undiscovered country. So this is a model of your DNA. About 10% of the DNA molecule concerns itself, as far as we can tell, with building proteins. Proteins which then instruct other proteins on what to do. So 90% is unknown. Some say junk DNA. Well, it's probably not junk. So what if it were coding non-physical information? So there is some evidence for the non-physical information. And when I said before about coding for system memory for the other organisms that came before you in your genetic line, we have some evidence for that. So for example, with alcohol tolerance. Okay? Your alcohol tolerance, whether you drink a drop or not, is dependent upon how long alcohol has been in your genetic line. Okay? So if your grandparents were alcoholics, or any one of your grandparents were alcoholics, you have their tolerance. Now, it doesn't mean that you'll become alcoholic. It's just like the gene for predisposition for diabetes. Doesn't mean I will get diabetes, but it does mean that if I start using food as a drug and overeat, lifestyle as we say, then that will trigger a response where I will develop a resistance to my own insulin. I'll have to exercise, as Doc says, every time you eat, exercise, for at least 10 to 15 minutes after every meal. That'll stabilize your sugar. Don't depend on the pills. That won't work. Pills can be overwhelmed by whatever you eat, and you can't just be eating salmon and salads all the time. Yeah.
I know that your body weight has partially to do with like how drunk you get, how fast, but does your family history and having a predisposition,
genetic predisposition.
Yeah. Does that have anything to do with like me, for example? I have a long history on my dad's side and my mom's side of alcoholics,
Mm-hmm.
and I had never even drank before.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would try to drink, all my friends would be belligerent, and I would be like not very drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I would drink, I would take more than it's even worth to pay to get me to my friend's level. And I had never even drank before. So does that have something to do with your family history?
Yes.
Having like natural tolerance
Yes.
to it?
Let me use another drug analogy. Oh, I can use the alcohol drug analogy. All right? So, if you, depending on when you drink, so let's say the age of initiation, we call it in prevention, is when you first start drinking on your own. Not, getting a beer from the fridge and taking a sip off it when dad's watching football. Not that. You going to the fridge on your own and drinking with the intent to do that. Now, the age of initiation in Oregon is about 10. When I first started, it was 13. Now it's 10. And it's been 10 for about 20 years, roughly. Okay? So, first time you drink, Without genetic predisposition, half a beer gets you drunk. So I'm talking about, for example, regular Bud, not brand loyalty, talking about 2% to 3% beer. Half a beer will get you drunk, right? But as you keep repeating the experience, your nervous system is designed to adapt to experiences that are repeated, right? So you get used to it. So then you can drink a whole beer. That's how you experience tolerance, all right? And then you can go up the ladder, so to speak. So that's what we call naive tolerance, right? No alcohol in your genetic line at all. That's how you would experience. With genetic predisposition, what that means is you inherit the tolerance of all the people that came before you. Okay? So this is basically using what we call epigenetics today. And actually, I got slides for this a little later, so bear with me. But just so you understand, the DNA code is partly physical, but like all matter, it's also an energy relationship. So it gets reprogrammed. Your use affects your eggs and sperm. They're reprogrammed with your drug tolerance as you use every day. Right? You inherit what happened before you, and up to the moment of conception, it's reprogrammed until it basically, the kid experiences their own tolerance, but what they came in with. So what you came in with, functionally, with having alcoholics in your genetic line, is you're able to drink 3 beers, using my same analogy, without feeling it, in particular. Mm-hmm. Right? Your blood alcohol level is going to remain the same, but you will feel less drunk. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? And okay, why spend a gallon to get as sloshed as they are? Like you said, why would you do that? But that's one explanation of that. All right? So what that means is, okay, DNA is being reprogrammed with your drug tolerance. That's not a physical thing alone. That's also a psychological thing. And a spiritual thing too, but right? So the owner's manual for the body is in the body. So in other words, the instructions on how to live, how those beings before you lived, not just humans, but everything. So, but if we just focus on the humans, to the degree, so how we even know this kind of stuff is that we had twins in Scandinavia, the famous twin studies, where these twins had alcoholic parents. They were taken out of their alcoholic home, raised in a non-alcoholic home, and they developed alcoholism independent of the role modeling of their parents. And they did these 20-year studies that were replicated for both male and females. Twin studies. So same genome. Right? So that's how we know. Something's getting passed on. So it's kind of like, the way I like to explain it, spiders never, don't worry about whether you like spiders or not, I'm just showing you something here. Spiders never meet their parents. How do they know how to spin webs? What do we call that? Instinct. All right? So you just acknowledge that knowledge has been transmitted through the DNA code. Because unless you want to say that spiders spin webs because that's what they do. System knowledge is being transmitted through the DNA code.